Hey y'all, I came across this article and found it to be pretty interesting. Um, we're going to run through it real quick. Posing as a pastor, man had at least 10 wives, prosecutors say. The Houston man was sentenced last week to 3 years in prison after he married a woman in Kentucky, violating the conditions of his probation on a bigamy charge, prosecutors said. He traveled around the country visiting small black churches where he presented himself as a pastor or a bishop. There we go. But prosecutors said they found no evidence that Orlando Coleman, 51, of Houston, was a member of the clergy, and they contend he used the claim to win the trust of church-going women, at least 10 of whom he married over the last 2 decades. It doesn't take much to get these church women to do anything. It's there's so many layers to it. we need to talk about it one day, y'all. It was a long con that came to an end last week, prosecutor said, when Mr. Coleman was sentenced to 3 years in prison after he married a woman in Kentucky, violating the conditions of his probation on a bigamy charge. Okay. He already was arrested for bigamy, and then he turns around and marries somebody else. Okay. Vanessa Goosen, an assistant district attorney in Harris County, Texas, who prosecuted Mr. Coleman, said that the investigators believe that his first marriage was in 2001 and he married women for financial gain. Of course he did. Over the years, she said, Mr. Coleman traveled to Delaware, Texas, Kentucky, Nebraska, Pennsylvania, Iowa, North Carolina, Virginia, and other states to meet women. After introducing himself as a Protestant pastor or bishop, he would propose marriage to bolster his claim to be a member of the clergy. Ms. Goosen said if a woman accepted, she said he would move in with her and she would pay for his housing, food, and bills. Yeah, because these dummies think that being married to a pastor is like being married to a celebrity. They put these pastors on pedestals. It's ridiculous. That's the only thing he had to offer and to validate his word, the proposal to marry. And that was something big. Yeah, that's huge. I mean, in general it is because, most women want to be married and to belong. But being married to a pastor? Oh my God. Getting proposed to was a big gesture for these women, and that corroborated his guise that he's a godly person. Okay. Let me just finish this first. After Mr. Coleman left his wives, the prosecutor said some of them filed for divorce. Mr. Coleman's lawyer did not respond on Wednesday and Thursday to messages seeking comment. 2 of the women Mr. Coleman married could not be reached at numbers listed under their names. Prosecutors said Mr. Coleman's con began to unravel after he married a Houston woman in 2021. 5 months into their marriage, Mr. Coleman's new wife found out that he was receiving money from a woman in Virginia, prosecutors said. According to court documents, the wife in Houston contacted the woman in Virginia on Facebook and they began to discuss Mr. Coleman. The woman in Virginia told Mr. Coleman's wife in Houston that she had been married to Mr. Coleman since 2019 and provided her with a copy of their marriage certificate, court documents say. The wife in Virginia told Mr. Coleman's new wife that she and Mr. Coleman had never divorced, but had separated in 2021 when he moved to Texas, court documents say. 2 weeks after the move, Mr. Coleman married the woman in Houston, court documents say. The Houston woman contacted the authorities and the Harris County Sheriff's Office investigated and filed bigamy charges. Mr. Coleman pleaded guilty to bigamy, a felony in Texas, in July 2023 in exchange for 3 years of probation and the chance to have his record cleared. But only 2 months after he was placed on probation, prosecutors said he married a woman in Kentucky while still being married to the woman in Virginia. He can't help himself. After learning about the new marriage, prosecutors filed a motion to revoke his probation. At a hearing on March 11th, the judge agreed to the motion and imposed a 3-year sentence. In a handwritten letter before his sentencing, Mr. Coleman had asked the court to continue his probation and to not only judge my case, but my heart. He said he never imagined that his latest wife would come into my life and become my everything. He said he believed that he was free to marry her because he believed his previous marriages had ended in an annulment or a divorce. Nigga, how? If I knew getting married was not allowed, I would have waited. He sure can talk some shit. Mr. Coleman also wrote of having survived sexual abuse as a child, and he said that growing up he didn't know love on any level. Well, that could very well be true. He said in the letter that he hoped to put the bigamy charge behind him and return to the church we pastor in Kentucky, helping to feed and clothe people. Next to his name, he wrote PhD, THD, DD, indicating that he held degrees as a doctor of philosophy, doctor of theology, doctor of divinity. Prosecutor said there's no evidence that Mr. Coleman held any advanced degrees. This guy is sick. Ms. Goosen said Mr. Coleman's victims, stung by his behavior, supported the revocation of his probation. From my conversations with them, they were very upset. They wanted him to go to prison because they felt this person abused their trust based on a title, and they believed he would do it again. Well, yeah, because these mofos think that these pastors walk on water. See, this is where a lot of, these church women just go wrong, okay? For one, religion is not very good to women, period. It's not. But I don't have the time to go into that right now. What I am going to say with these women that pedestalize these preachers, they have romanticized a fake Jesus to a point to where no flawed but decent man can compete. He can't compete because they're trying to compete with a fictionalized character, a perfect man, a good man, because everybody has their flaws. So I'm saying a good but flawed individual can't compete with a perfect person. And that's what is wrong with these women. They are still going around looking for Jesus in these men, and they're never going to find him because, he never existed anyway. So, ever since that whole Risa Tisa thing, and then Jillian, both of them, they were, the who the blank did I marry? And then, I forgot Jillian, her series was called The Lies He Told Me. Both of them were very hardcore Christian women. I've seen a lot of, not just Christian women, but, I've been open about the fact that I was raised a Jehovah's Witness. So I've seen a lot of women being abused, exploited, manipulated, under the guise of it being a godly man. So I really need to talk about that, but I just wanted to run through this article real quick. That's him right there. That's Mr. Coleman. So anyway, y'all have a good night.